come to me down no more. Kill them when you hear me sing. Fire up the blood, purify everything, yes. Kill them when you hear me roar. Babylon come to me down no more.
Aloha and welcome to La Kū'oko'a, Hawaii Independence Day. I don't know what to say about this except that we didn't have a choice. We have to do something for our Independence Day, which was a holiday during the Hawaiian Kingdom. And I've asked Dr. Schweizer to come and talk a little bit about that history because lots of people don't know about that particular history. As a matter of fact, Hawaii had a number of holidays. Among them Independence Day and Christmas. You can tell them all that stuff too, right? And so I'm not going to talk anymore. Go, go, go.
Mahalo ya oe lidet. Aloha vakea kakoa pau. Nui ko uhauoli no ka ha'i olelo ana no ka wa pokole pili ana I kia la nui loa kapa ia o ka la Kū'oko'a o Hawaii nei. Me ia I kia manawa ho'omau vau maka olelo pelekane. So from now on I will speak English. Kala Kū'oko'a is indeed a red-lettered day in the annals of Hawaii, because on that day in 1843 the island kingdom joined the most exclusive club of the world, namely the family of fully independent countries. Hawaii, in fact, was the first nation to do so, and this is really amazing, to do so not only in the entire Pacific, but in all of Asia. So we always talk about the Asia-Pacific region, but nobody ever mentions that Hawaii was the first fully independent country in that huge, it's more than half of the world, area. Indeed, we have to wait until 1894 and the ending of the Sino-Japanese War until the next country of the Asia-Pacific region would be accorded this high status. And which country is that, do you think? Hawaii first and then? 1894? Japan. The Empire of Japan, because they won against China. Several other non-Western nations also joined the world diplomatically in that area in the wake of Hawaii's admission, such as the Ottoman Empire after the Crimean War of 1854-1855, the Kingdom of Siam, which today is called Thailand, as well as China. But until much later, the sovereignty of those countries was encumbered by unequal treaties concerning their jurisdiction over foreigners. They didn't have a jurisdiction over Europeans and Americans and so forth. The respective consuls of those nations had jurisdiction over them, so that if they became criminal, a Chinese court could not deal with them. It had to be the consul of that country. Now, how was it possible for a small mid-Pacific kingdom to achieve such a lofty goal? We have to step back in time to 1815 and 1816 and following years to understand what really happened. In 1815 and also in 1816, a challenge emerged from Russia to take over Kauai and Niihau. This came down from Sitka, Russian America, now Alaska, and it was the Russian-American company, one of the biggest companies in the world ever, that challenged the sovereignty of the islands. They teamed up with, was a German by the way, leave it up to the Germans, Dr. Schäfer, who took it upon himself to ally himself with Kamehameha of Kauai, who longed to get rid of Kamehameha's sovereignty over him. But it came to naught. The Russians were pushed out. And the Tsar, by the way, Alexander I, said this was wrong anyway because it smacks of might makes right. That's the Russian Tsar. In the 1820s, we have a challenge from British and US warships, which foisted iniquitous treaties upon the kingdom. The first, enacted by Captain Thomas A.P. Catesby Jones of the USS Peacock at the end of 1826, and 10 years later, a British man of war did the same thing, imposed an unequal treaty on the Kingdom of Hawaii, and this was on November 16th, 1836, and who was born on this day? The gentleman for whom the palace is decorated, namely King Kū'oko'a, and his name says exactly that, because what does it mean? Kū'oko'a, the day of war, right? We just celebrated his birthday with an inspection of the Royal Guard, November 16th, just a few days ago. Then came Les Français, Vive la France, at the end of the 1830s. And if Kamehameha III had not wisely declared on June 17th, 1839, what amounted to a policy of religious tolerance in order to allow the Catholics to establish themselves in Hawaii officially, Honolulu would have been threatened by the 60 guns of the ship L'Artemise, commanded by Port Captain C.P.T. Laplace. Now Laplace had just caused a lot of trouble to the Tahitians, Queen Pomare IV, and this led to an imposition of a French protectorate over Tahiti and eventually to the takeover of the French and a colony which ultimately was called French Polynesia. But Kauikaʻaole preempted this by declaring that any church could establish itself here, which meant that the Catholics could build Our Lady of Peace Cathedral, which of course is highly ironic because they only could do that because of French guns. So, Our Lady of Peace, right? Anyway, in the early 1840s, the British once more became a problem due to the unreasonable demands of their overly zealous consul. Does anyone know his name? Yeah, Richard Charlton. Caused a lot of pilikia. Not very much understanding of British diplomats, who usually are high carrot, but Charlton was certainly not high carrot. By the way, he was also consul of the Friendly Islands, meaning Tonga, so he was all over the place. Former sea captain. Kauikaʻaole, Kamehameha III, and his ranking alii therefore decided to do something about all of this and anchor the sovereignty of Hawaii more securely. And so they sent a diplomatic mission to Europe and to Great Britain. I say to Europe and Great Britain because the British did not consider themselves to be European. They still don't, really. They're still very different. Anyway, this mission was sent to Paris and to London. And the mission consisted of, and one of the gentlemen was mentioned just a few minutes ago, Timoteo Ha, who was really ambassador and headed the mission. Do you know who else was part of this diplomatic delegation?
William Ellis.
No, not Ellis. William Richards. And a Britisher by the name of Sir George Simpson. Now, alilio was a confidant and also secretary to the king and very close to him. Richards, who was he?
Missionary.
Yes, one of the handful of Calvinist missionaries from Boston who really had sympathy with Hawaiians, Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian independence. The others were a huge problem and their sons overthrew the Queen. But he is an exception. So Williams, we have to honor him greatly. What about Simpson? Where did he come from?
Canada, Britain.
what then was British North America, the alternative to the United States. Remember the Revolutionary Wars and then the War of 1812, which settled the border between the US and British North America in the east, around the big lakes. Huh? Hudson's Bay Company, Hudson Bay, yes. So he's British. Actually, he's from Scotland, so he's a Scot. He, in fact, that's important. He, in fact, financed the venture. $10,000. Financed it. And in order to understand this, we have to know something about the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1813, that famous enterprise, which of course was, as far as North America, headquartered in Montreal, and named after that huge bay over which I flew just 2 weeks ago, Hudson's Bay. In 1813, that famous enterprise purchased from Johann Jacob Astor, the American Fur Company, with its headquarters on the Columbia River. So they were interested in pelts, which they sent to which country?
Russia.
China. Pelts from Russia went by Hawaii to China, and pelts from British North America were sent along the same route. So this is the trade in furs in the early 19th century, and Hawaii plays a central position in this. Now, Johann Jacob Astor, do you know who that guy was?
He was a
German, from Waldorf, a little town between Heidelberg and what is it? South of Heidelberg? No.
Southern Heidelberg. Anaheim.
Yeah, nearby, right. Waldorf Astoria, right? Now, he was first interested in trading in furs, and then he had some financial problems, so he sold his company to the Hudson's Bay Company, and so they established themselves on the Columbia River, and then in 1829 they expanded into Hawaii. The name of the town, by the way, is Karlsruhe. So Waldorf is between Heidelberg and Karlsruhe. So 1829, Hudson's Bay Company establishes itself in Honolulu as a subsidiary. What do they do? This is very early. Honolulu is a village populated by about 4,000 Hawaiians, about 150 haole businessmen, a handful of missionaries, sea captains, and 2 overly active consuls. This is how the consular corps begins. We trace our origin back to 1824. The British consul and the American consul, and both constantly overstepped their line of authority. Sometimes they were constructive, sometimes they were a real headache to the Hawaiian government. But they were treated royally with salutes, with luau's, with all kinds of dinners, and so while this was only a village, the social life moved on a very high level, with beautiful silverware and china and tables bedecked very elegantly. So that's Honolulu of the 1820s.